All right, Julie, we've got about 10 people on now.
Great.
Good sign that we'll be at 15 because usually we have people sign up within the first 10 minutes. All right, Julie, I'm going to mute you for now while we get started, and then I will connect you to get going. All right. Good evening, everyone. I think some are still going to start joining us, but it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to begin. This is our new webinar series this year called Inspiring Ideas from Experts in the Field. It's a new workshop format for NOFA-MAS, and our hope is to make quality farm management education easily accessible to everyone. My name is Brittany Overshiner, and I'm the Beginning Farmer Program Coordinator for NOFA-MAS. My email is brittany@nofamas.org. Feel free to contact me with feedback about this webinar or any other beginning farmer questions or issues. Before we start tonight, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Frontier Natural Products, Lancaster Agriculture, and UMass Risk Management Crop Insurance Education Program for supporting the production of this series. I'd also like to thank New Entry Sustainable Farming Project and the Tufts Friedman School of Nutritional Science and Policy for providing access to the WebEx software we're using to host the workshop. Also, many thanks to all the NOFA-MAS staff and board members who have helped make this workshop possible. If you are not a member of NOFA-MAS, please consider joining to support our education and policy work. Visit our website to learn more, nofamas.org. Tonight, presenter Julie Rawson of Many Hands Organic Farm in Barre, Massachusetts. She will be presenting on raising pastured turkeys on her farm. The format will be a presentation from Julie to start with some participation and then a question and answer session to follow. To type a question or to interact, you can use the chat button, which is in the top right corner of your screen. If you are calling in by phone, you can also text your questions to me. My phone number is 857-383-7020. That's 857-383-7020. To practice the use of this feature, I'm going to invite anyone who wants to type into the chat field either your name, your farm, the town you live in, why you joined us tonight. So if you want to click that little chat button, and here's an example of what it looks like. You can click the, actually they've changed it. It used to be round, now it's square. Up in the top right corner of your screen, you can type in anything you want to, just to practice using it. But I'm going to get ready to hand the reins over to Julie. So I'm going to turn on your volume, and I'm going to change Julie to the presenter. And actually, Julie, I'm going to have you click over to the Certified Organic.
Yes. Okay. It's still unavailable to me. There it is. Okay.
All right, you got it. All right, Julie, I'm going to mute myself. If you need me, I'll be here. Otherwise, the stage is yours.
All right. Hello, everyone. I live with my husband, Jack Kittredge, at Many Hands Organic Farm in Barre, Mass. We've been here, we bought our land in 1980, and we moved out here in 1982 with our 4 children, and we started raising turkeys in 1986, I think, 85 maybe, a long time ago. We have about a $100,000 a year operation here. We raise vegetables on about 3 acres. We raise a couple steers, 9 pigs this year, 300 meat birds, 100 new layer hens every year, and 100 turkeys. And we also have an acre of large tree fruit and also small tree fruit. So we do a lot of different things here. Turkeys are one of my favorite animals to raise. They're all favorite for one reason or another, but turkeys are really special in my mind. This picture here is a picture of our turkeys that we on the first day this year when they came in, and this is the little notes about brooding. We have nothing fancy on our farm. We always do things as economically considerate as possible. We have a chicken house in which we put the roosts down and then put polystyrene insulation on top of that, and then hang our lights below that for them to stay warm. So you can see here the water dishes have the red bottoms on them because they see that red and they go for that water more quickly. We put them up a little bit on a board so that they don't leak. They need to be flat. We usually use hay as bedding for the birds. And we have a couple or 3 lights in there. You can see that the birds are not too tightly clustered in there, but they're also not too spread out. We want them to stay around the light but not be too tight in there. So you'll see the feed. We use certified organic grain for our birds. We get it from Kramer Feeds. We also give them fresh greens every day. That's probably a mix of comfrey and dandelions. We bring them in and rip them up for them to eat. I find that's really important. We also give them a shovelful of dirt every day for them to sort through and get little bugs and things, and also, I think nutritional factors out of that. The bedding we clean by adding a little bit of bedding every day, and we put vinegar in their water to help them have better gut health. So this year, we've been buying our birds from Bob's Turkey Farm for a long time, which is in Lancaster. We go there on 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, pick up our birds, bring them home, and they're in under the brooding lights by 10. And this year, Bob's Turkey Farm had a huge fire, and 10,000 birds were lost. It was the week that we were supposed to get our birds, so we were not able to get birds from them. We hustled around and looked for other sources. We finally got some from Hoffman's Hatchery, which is in Ohio, and they sent them 4 weeks later, but what we found in the box, you'll see all these dead birds. We actually had 100 birds. We ordered 15 of them were dead when they got here. Another 15 died over the next 2-3 days, and by the end of the time that we lost about 50 of the 100 birds. So it's not uncommon with turkeys, although I have found we raise a lot of chickens and have done both for 30 years. Not hard for chickens to ride in a box like that and go on an airplane and be delivered 2 days later and do fine. But turkeys often have a lot of stress issues, and so you have to be very careful about ordering turkeys mail order. If you can get them locally, I find that that's much better way to go. People think a lot about turkey breeds, and I just have a few thoughts here for you. The heritage breeds are very beautiful. A Royal Palm, for example, is just an amazing bird. The blue slate, the eastern wild, black Spanish, bourbon red. Those are the major heritage breeds that people raise. I have never raised them. I really have been concerned that they wouldn't grow fast enough, that they would have a little more of a gamey taste. And as it turns out, Thanksgiving dinner is probably the most important meal of the year in most Americans' lives, and people really want to have that perfect bird. So we have chosen to go with the, oops, looks like something happened here. I don't see the picture anymore. Brittany, I don't know what happened.
Julie, I'm going to make you the presenter again. I'm not quite sure why that switched.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks. So we have gone with either the broad-breasted bronze or the broad-breasted white. They are a little more economical to raise. They go faster to the age of slaughter. You'll find if you use the bronze turkeys, which we did early on, we love them, beautiful birds, that they have darker pin feathers, and again, those pesky customers like very clean-looking birds. An ideal size for a turkey, Thanksgiving turkey, is for your hens to be in the 12 to 16 pound range, and the toms to be in the 18 to 24 pound range. Now, it's been my experience up until this year that if I order the birds 20 weeks before Thanksgiving, I got almost exactly that wonderful breakdown of 12 to 16, 18 to 24. This year we had a real anomaly, which I'll go on a little bit more later, but that first batch we got of 100, of which 50 died, were 4 weeks later than usual. And then we got, 2 weeks later, we got 30 more birds from another source. They came actually from Ridgeway Farm, I understand, but we got them through Walter Anair, who's our horse and buggy in Winchendon. He's our feed dealer. And he got them to us the next day, and those birds had 100% good. They all lived to the very end. We were a little shocked this year that our birds were up by about 5 pounds above average, and they were a little big, and we had to do a little fast talking to get them out to our customers to buy them. So I'll cover that a little more later. Here's housing is a very important issue. And you'll see in this picture, we were moving the birds. You can see them. We're moving them from one field to another that day. We had finished up the orchard that they were in, and we're moving them over to one of our garden fields. And so, but it shows the house nicely. It shows you how to move it, too. We had 2 people on the dollies up front. Normally, when you move the house, you can put one person on a dolly up front and one person in the back standing between those two handles there, and just pick it up and move it forward. In this case, we were moving across the street, and we were going a long distance, so we had a little extra help. Our grandson was up there actually hammering nails at the same time, having a good time across there. And Franny, you'll see our dog down below. She part of what her job is every day is to stand at the back of the house when we pull the house forward 1 notch and kind of bark and keep the turkeys moving forward. So anyway, this gives you a sense of that housing. And I think I have some stats on the next page. Yeah, as sturdy as possible while being as lightweight as possible. We've gone with this system, which is I didn't put it on here. I'm sorry. They're 8 by 12 feet, so they're about 100 square feet inside. We make them about 36 inches tall, with using a roll of welded wire fencing as the outside covering around all the sides. As you saw, the bottom's open and the top is covered with some metal roofing. You got to be careful when you're using welded wire fencing, not to get it too small, not to have it too big. The 3 by 4 inch holes are way too big. Hawks can reach in, raccoons, all sorts of people can get in there and eat your bird. So make sure that your fencing is sturdy enough and also has small enough holes for it. We use ripped 2-bys to a 2 by 2 width so that we can maintain a little bit lighter house. They do get heavy. The handles are for moving, but also serve as roost space. Metal roofing, which I mentioned before. We put the roof on an angle, a little bit raised on one end or another, so that the rain can drain off and you don't have it pooling and often then would go through those nail holes and make it wet inside for them and oftentimes spoil their feed. The short diagonals in the corners of the house, in all four bottom corners, add a lot of strength to that. And then we build in a door for access to the birds and to get into the birds and to get into their feed, add their feed. We have, again, one of those issues with turkeys. They're wonderfully sturdy birds, except that they have health concerns that you don't have with chickens, which I find. And we have gone to using these cool bell waterers that you see here. And you hang the water inside the house. You have the hose comes into this pressure regulator, and then this regulator allows you to send that water through that little clear tube that you can see there over to the automatic water. It hangs in the house, and then whenever the turkeys take a drink, it just refills. So turkeys have a tendency to crap in their water or knock it over, and they really can't handle their own excrement. Chickens are cleaner, it seems to me, than turkeys that way. So these hanging waters help them keep their excrement out of their water and keep them less likely to have disease problems. And when a turkey gets sick, it usually dies within a day. So it's too late once your birds get sick. So the watering, we have really found over the years, using these waterers has helped our viability, livability. You also can see the corner in this picture, which has the bell water, and you can see the corner bracing on the house too. In case you wanted to take another look at that. All right. For some reason there we go. Watering after the freeze. So turkeys are around until Thanksgiving. Usually here in Central Mass, we start having to take down those automatic watering system because when they freeze in there, it'll destroy the system. So we take that out at the point that we start having a lot of cold nights, and then we use a 5-gallon pail. Again, something really tall so the turkeys can reach down into it, but they won't be able to turn around and crap in it. And then we also keep it right in the corner of the house because they're likely to want to roost on it and spill it. Simple system though, just a hose and a 5-gallon pail. So I just want to talk a little bit about feed because I feel very strongly about feed, that you should use organic feed. We're certified organic. Non-GMO is fine, but regular conventional feed, half the price of organic, but you're really supporting a system of farming that's really destroying the earth. And I think there's no reason, if you're a NOFA type farmer who's really trying to work with the earth systems, to not buy organic feed or at least non-GMO feed. So be thoughtful about that. It is expensive, twice as expensive. I think we were paying $25.65 for a 40-pound bag this year. One of the things that we're going to upgrade next year to from Nature's Best, we're going to be able to get 1-ton totes of grain and save about $100 a ton on that. On the left in this picture, you'll see that we started fermenting our feed. I've done a lot of sprouting of seeds for chickens particularly over the years, and started fermenting all of our feed this year, except for our turkeys. I'm just a little nervous about them eating off the ground. I want to think about a way to get that to them in a way that they won't be picking through their manure. But these fermented feeds we found for both of our pigs and chickens were a very nice addition to the way we raise our animals, and they seem to really thrive on them. So I didn't have a nice picture of turkeys on a lot of grass, but I wanted to talk about mob stalking. You can do it with any kind of animal. It's nice to have cows to come through and kind of take down the grass a little bit before you take the turkeys over it or chickens. But the idea with mob stalking is that you move in on a pasture for a very short period of time and eat down the grass for that period of time as much as they can eat in the day. We move them every day and then move them on and then not come back until the grass has grown higher. And when we've been doing this really with our cows for the last 3 or 4 years and finding incredible increase in pasture fertility and the food quality of the grass has really improved tremendously. And this is picture you see of those cows was taken this summer when we were in severe drought in Central Mass. All around us, people were struggling to have enough pasture, and as you can see, we never missed a beat on the pasture. So it's something to consider, and it's going to lead to overall health improvement across the board, besides building carbon in your soil. The other thing that I stand by is comfrey and also dandelions, but comfrey particularly. We planted some 35 years ago on an edge of our garden, and we've been moving it all over the farm ever since then. We feed our birds that comfrey every day. All of our chickens, our turkeys, and the cows, any of our livestock really go crazy over comfrey. It's very high in protein, a lot of minerals, and a really very amazing food. So we just keep hacking those plants up and planting them more and more over the farm so that they're available for us to walk by and rip off the top of and feed to the birds on the way by. So one of the things I wanted to talk about while you're raising your birds, and if you're raising other things like we are, is to try to use them for fertility for your garden spaces too. So on the picture on the left, you'll see the turkeys coming at us. And we, right to the right of those turkeys is what it looked like before we came through with it. We came through with a tractor mower and mowed down a bunch of brassicas that were gone by, and as high as we could, but just enough so that we can raise those houses up over that stubble and bring them through and manure it. And then the trouble with turkeys is they're late in the season, so I have a hard time getting as much cover crop back on there in a timely fashion. But we did, in this case, bring in a lot of fertility for that piece of land. So you can be creative with turkeys and with chickens as you're moving them one day at a time across an area, thinking about how to bring that manure in there and hopefully planting cover crops later to enhance the soil. This other picture on the right was taken right before slaughter. We let a couple of the birds out just so they could show off for the photographer. But you can see this is the same field as the one in the other picture, coming in the other direction. But we have a lot of oak trees, and the leaves come down on the field and scatter in around all these brassicas. We have a lot of daikon in here. The green is mostly daikon. So there's, in this case, we're having this nice mat of leaves and daikon left behind after the turkeys for a fall. When we move the birds from the part of this field is half grass, half veggies, and we moved them off of the grass and back onto the field again. And as they saw the daikon coming, the most beautiful chorus of happy speaking birds about what they were moving into, and when they got into that, they were so excited about eating it. That's one of the beauties of turkeys, is they just talk to you and really tell you how they're feeling about things. But it's very exciting to see them come into an area and really enjoy the greens as they move in every day. Marketing, just to remember that when you're marketing, that the most important meal of the year is Thanksgiving. That's why people will spend $5.50 a pound for our turkeys as opposed to 99 or 49 cents or whatever the deal is that they get, because they really want to put on the dog, as it were, for their families. Health consciousness is another reason to market a really healthy animal that's been raised outside and, new pasture every day and gotten all the best treatment. Organic for the earth, carbon-friendly pasture management, those are all things that you should use for folks when you're trying to talk them into buying something that's so much more expensive than they'll get at the store. And also the taste is supreme. We always hear from people, best turkey I ever ate, couldn't believe it, amazing. So that's another thing to encourage people about how to cook them. We have found that our birds cook faster than a conventional bird. They're juicier. They don't need to be brined. They don't need to be basted. They're just basically you throw it in the oven, you roast it until it's done, and it's very tasty. And I also, this year, as we were having a little bit of trouble marketing, I sent people directions on how to make turkey soup when they were done and how they can freeze that and how, meat stocks and bone broths are an exceptional value for your health. Just lots and lots of ways to market and pictures. This is again, that same grandson Doodle. He was feeding the turkeys in there, but letting people see how they're raised and letting them understand the process can get people really excited about buying a bird. There's still a conversation about slaughter. Selling birds that are slaughtered at a custom house is illegal in Massachusetts unless you sell them in advance and slaughter as a convenience for the customer. So that's what we've been doing for the last 30 years. And we've been able to the law is happy, let's put it that way. You can't do sales to third parties. You can't, in other words, sell it to a store or a co-op or anything like that and have them resell. We did try that with some chickens with one of the health food stores we work with many years ago, and we quickly got visited by the Department of Ag. So you have to be very careful about that. Killing on site is difficult, and the birds are very heavy. It's something to really consider that killing a chicken is quite different than killing a turkey. And it's expensive if you invest in equipment, and then, the whole slaughterhouse with the proper sewage, etc. And if you do it outside, it can be awfully cold at Thanksgiving time. So it's just something to be concerned about is how you're going to get your birds slaughtered at the end of the day. The USDA plants are far-flung and very expensive. I don't think there's one in this state yet. We've gone as far away as Connecticut, 2 hours away, and in Vermont, hour and a half away before when we wanted to do USDA slaughter. We've really focused in on our relationship with horse and buggy feeds in Winchendon, and that works really well for us. Home slaughter, of course, is a good option for, if you're doing just a few for yourself. You can slaughter them at your leisure, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So here's the packaging, just to get you a sense of how we do ours. We take them up to horse and buggy in the back of that red truck with a cap on it and drop them off. They slaughter them for us, put them in boxes like this. We bring them back and label them, weigh them, price them, and put them in the walk-in cooler. And then people come and pick one out of the cooler when they're coming to buy. It's also, Thanksgiving is a really nice time, as many of you know if you're vegetable growers, for other sales. Again, biggest meal of the year. So have all the other things that you can think of available. You can see their vegetables. We have our honey, our salve, our canned tomatoes, our canned grape juice, our eggs, garlic powder, soap, all sorts of things that we sell. And we sell usually another $1,000 worth of stuff on that Thanksgiving sale. And usually what I do now is ask people in advance, tell them what we're going to have, and they can pre-order it, have it ready for them when they come, make it really easy for your customers. Here's a little bit about home slaughter. We killed 4 birds this year. We had 2 birds that were getting beat up by the other birds in the houses, and we killed those early. And then we had 2 more that customers wanted them before Thanksgiving, and so we had to kill them in advance. I just reminds me that when you put them in the houses, you probably wonder how many in a house. At the end, we only had 7 in each one of those houses. We had 11 houses going, and early on you can have them all in one house, but as soon as you start seeing any kind of behavior where they're picking on somebody, you need to split them up and get them further apart. And I don't really go by poundage. I just really look and see how things are going, and if they're healthy and happy and not fighting, you have a good spacing in those houses. But you really, as you get near the end of the time, they really need to have lots of space. So we hang them upside down on this tree on a rope, slit their throat, bleed them out, which is very important. And then we boil water on our wood stove and add a little cold water. It's about 140 degrees, and slosh them up and down in that water for under 5 minutes until you can get all the feathers, pull them out pretty easily. That's what we're doing there on the right. Slaughter continued. We're pulling out the feathers here in the next one, and then that's all done. Then we wash it up with a hose, chop off the feet and head, eviscerate, and cool. This is the bird out on our washing table, ready for the final stages. This is one of our nice birds that we slaughtered for a friend who wanted it early. You can see how beautiful that carcass is. We actually got the water temperature just right, and we had a really nice, healthy looking bird. Here's a little explanation of how to clean the gizzard. When you have to cut open the gizzard, and then inside there's a leathery skin that is the inside of the gizzard where it receives all the rocks and all the other things that they put in there to grind up their food. And so it's very sturdy, and then you have to separate that from the walls of the gizzard and then throw that piece away. And then we're also showing you here cutting off the neck. We use pruning shears to do that. And there's the neck on the head on the table. There we go. Here's some stats that we did, and we have a little bit, kind of having a little bit of a challenge understanding the stats from 2004. They weren't as consistent, 2014, sorry, as the 2013, 15, and 16, but we kept track of our birds at harvest. We always start with 100. These first 2 years where we have 61 and 72, those were years where we had mistakes. People left the houses doors ajar, birds got out, and the coyotes ate them. There's just no. They'll be there. They'll be there to eat your birds. So what we've been noticing over the last few years, and I do think this is because of our higher quality of our pasture, more than anything else, because we've been buying the same feed from Nature's Best. I think it hasn't changed substantially over the years. Is that the weights at harvest are going up. And so you'll see 2013 it was 17.5 pounds. That's the average weight of a turkey. 18.6 in 14, 19.7 in 15, and then this year, amazingly, we only went on average 15.25 weeks instead of the usual 20, and it jumped almost 5 pounds from last year. So interesting stuff to consider. We don't know really all the reasons for that, but I did feed them a lot more comfrey this year, and our pasture was that much better than it has been in the past mostly because of the way we're managing our cows. But you can do that same thing as you think about your grass for your animals. You want to make sure that they're on there quickly, they eat quickly, and they move on, and you not move them back until it's tall enough again, so that there's been a lot of opportunity for growth. Some numbers on the total feed, pounds of feed per bird. Obviously the poundage went up too, except for 2014, where I think I might have had bad figures. And the feed conversion rate, we're presently at 3.4 pounds of grain to 1 pound of turkey. If you read the things from the university bulletins and such, they'll say 3 to 1. Those usually are for birds that are not raised on pasture. They're usually raised inside, and they get less exercise. So I think you'll see somewhere between 3 and 4 pounds of feed per bird in a pasture-raised system. Excuse me. Expenses without labor, the feed costs, they are presently at 66 cents a pound. The turkey starter is a little more expensive than the grower, but you don't use very much of that. And like I said, we're going to be moving to totes next year, 1-ton totes, and saving substantially on that. But that's the feed costs. And then here we have the income without labor. It's been $5.50 a pound for several years now, but we actually brought in over 10 grand, 10,670 this year in income from the birds. Net income without labor, about $5,500 this year. And then we figured in very roughly labor costs at an hour a day. It's much higher labor costs as you get longer into the season. You're moving more houses. It takes a lot of time. You're dealing with frozen waters in November, but early on, it's just 10, 15 minutes to do the chores. So that was a guess for us. And so the net income with labor this year came in at a pretty reasonable rate of $4,000. Actually, we netted, and net income per bird was average was $50. So that's that. And I think I'm done with my slides, Brittany. So I'm happy to take questions now.
Awesome, Julie. If you actually go over to the chat feature, people
Yes.
have typed in questions. If you want to scroll up.
Okay. I see someone said hi. Someone said turkey time. Okay, here we go. What's the maximum dimension for 36-inch welded wire? Maximum dimension. Do you mean, I wonder if you're meaning how small should the squares be?
Yeah, it was right after you mentioned if it got too big, a hawk could reach in and grab it.
Yeah, so I think we usually use 1 by 2 inch welded wire for that. What palms did you have to grease to get 1 ton of grain? Well, I think if you talk to your feed dealer, we have a really good relationship with Horse and Buggy. I don't know where all of you live, but if you can find somebody like Walter Anair who you buy consistently from, and we have a grain co-op. I've been working with him for I don't know how many years, 15 years now, and we make plans for when he delivers to us. We get a 3% discount. And we set up the deliveries for the entire year. We plan how much, we have a sense generally of what we're going to feed our pigs, our chickens, our turkeys. And so I'm a good customer in that sense. I bring other people in they can be part of our co-op, and they can order with us, get that same discount that we get. And I think because he sees us as a good customer and we bring him other customers, that he checked in with Kramer, and they said that they could do that 1-ton tote. So I guess these things are available. Sometimes you just have to ask. What kind of comfrey do the birds enjoy? And I don't know. It's big and it's green, and I bought it 35 years ago, and it likes to spread. So especially if you till it or in some way chop it up, it'll come back. I don't know any more about the type of comfrey it is. Sorry. I don't see any other questions. Oh, there's one. How often do you move your turkey shelters? Daily? Yes. We move them every day. Turkeys really enjoy their pasture, even more so than chickens. They will tell you how happy they are as you move on to the new pasture every day. That's one of the most beautiful things, I think, of doing the turkey chores. And we make huge efforts to move those shelters every day. Dimensions. What's that? Yeah.
Interrupt 1 second. Some people are sending questions and they're coming just to me privately. So make sure that you select send to everyone when you type into the chat. But go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, what dimensions are your turkey houses? So they're about 36, 38 inches tall. You could make them taller, but they would enjoy that because they get tall and they do like to roost. And as they get older, they can't roost any longer on those handles, but it makes them that much heavier. So ours are about 38 inches tall, and they are 8 by 12 feet in dimension. Do you limit your feed? My food costs were nearly double for 150 birds. We do limit our feed. I don't like them to get too hungry, but I want to make sure that they're not wasting anything. So we would check every day if there was any feed left in the feeder the next morning. We only feed them once a day. If there was any feed in the feeder the next morning, we would give them a little bit less and monitor each tray, each feeding canister very carefully. I'm pretty careful about them, though. The chickens, when I can throw out that fermented feed on the grass. I can feel like I can let them, run out because they'll just dig a little deeper and rip up the sod more. But the turkeys, I've been very careful to feed them what I think they need. What protein percentage is your bagged feed? I don't know the answer to that. That would be on the Nature's Best Kramer website, though, I'm sure. Market price per pound for farm-raised turkey. I'm not sure exactly what that question is, except that we charge $5.50 a pound and have been charging that for 6 or 7 years. I don't think we feel like we can go any higher than that. Other than the issue with Hoffman, what kind of mortality do you experience over the season? So generally speaking, we are at about 80%, not mortality, but livability. So we generally end up with about 80 birds. I wanted to caution you, though, if you do raise chickens, do not raise your turkeys in an area where the chickens are on pasture. We used to, back in the day, raise turkeys and chickens, and we were somewhat cavalier, and then we started getting real disease problems and stopped raising them for a few years, and then came back to it again and made sure that they're always on a pasture that hasn't seen any chickens for at least 12 months. A few years back, I got a cavalier again. They were out in the pasture where the chickens had been, and then we started losing them again. So when we practice, moving them every day, making sure that there's no manure on anything, make sure those bell waterers, for example, when they're hanging inside your house, make sure that they're not underneath a roost because they'll poop on them and it'll go into the water. Make sure that the feed is clean, all that, then we're able to make it out with about 80 birds out of 100. Nature's Best is like 20%, someone says. I guess someone looked that up. What was your slaughter cost by horse and buggy? They charge us $10 a bird, which I think is reasonably cheap. Do you have any problems with predators breaking into the turkey shelters? So I forgot to tell you about the light that we have, but we have coyotes around everywhere, and during the season when it gets colder, we'll hear them out there just, going at it all night long. And we have a dog who's getting a little older. She's not as diligent as she has been in the past, but she does go out there. And what we find is that if we see those white pails, which remember I put them in the corner of the house, if we see those pails knocked over in the morning, we know that those coyotes are out there running around those houses and scaring the shit out of those turkeys. And one year we had a situation where the turkeys, I think, were banging around the house and the door flipped open because it wasn't properly latched, and we lost some birds that year through that. In the last 2 years, we put up a light on a sensor, so we have it up, nailed to one of the houses. It's kind of in the middle of the houses. And anytime there's any kind of motion, the light will go on. Coyotes don't like that, and they'll run away quickly from the light. And then when they go away, the light goes off. So it goes off and on. And we found that light works pretty well. We didn't have any losses to coyotes this year, which was great. Can you show us your turkey shelters again? Okay, yes I can. And can you have turkeys and chickens on adjacent pasture? I would say no. Don't try messing around with turkeys and chickens close to each other. I stopped short of like washing my boots or anything like that. I'm not that concerned about making sure I don't get any manure. When I move from one set of chores to another, I usually am barefoot and I usually walk in the grass, but I don't think it's a good idea to have them near each other. So here's one picture of the house. This is Doodle, who's 3 years old, standing up and filling the feeder, and you can see the corners there, the support corners up on the top and on the bottom also. Here's another shot of the two houses here. The bird's just coming out for a little stroll to say hi. And there's another one on the left, I guess, another picture there gives you another sense of that. And I had another better picture. Here's behind the watering system. You can see again the reinforced corners. And here's a full shot of the house with the in the back we have the handles where people, in normal situation, we'd have two people on the moving operation, one person standing between those handles and another person up front with the dolly just pulling it along. Okay. How apart? There's a question. If you do have them apart, how far apart? I guess we just have them in different pastures, really. How far? 100 feet, something like that. Are there any other questions or any other comments? I think oh, here we go. How susceptible to heat or cold? Okay, so that's a good question. During the brooding period, any bird that's not feathered out really needs to be warm. And again, you can, I think they say 95, 90, 85, down each year. But what I do is I just go out and look at them. If they are nicely spaced under the light, but just walking around, having a good time, and not crying, that means your temperature is good. If they are crowding to the corners of your brooding area, it's too hot, and if they're really tight under the light, they're too cold. So that really tells you what you need to know about heat and heat modulation during their brooding period. As soon as they start to feather out, I take that polystyrene lid off of their rooster, their low roof, and every day, open things up a little bit, keep an eye on things. If it gets dark, if it gets cold at night, put it back on again. But just keep really good track of them the first 1 to 3.5 weeks, and then they can go outside. The other issue with turkeys, when you have them outside, if it rains on the first couple days, I go out and I put a tarp or a blanket or something over the house. And I've been known, if it dips down and gets cold, sometimes we'll actually bring a light out. We start them out in the front yard actually, so I can listen to them at night, out our window, bedroom window, and reattach a heat lamp right inside the house for them to stay warm enough. Once they're feathered out, once they understand the issue of rain at night, they will get away from the rain and they'll be fine. They seem to have no concern with cold weather. A few years ago, when we had 2 years in a row, I think we had huge snows in the end of October, and we went out and the houses were encased in snow. I had to come out and actually shovel them out. They were all fine in their house, just like chilling and enjoying themselves. So once they get big enough, they're very weather appropriate. They can handle it pretty nicely. Do you need any kind of health testing on the turkeys to market them? No, we don't do that. Salmonella, I guess is the question about salmonella testing. Again, No, there is no regulation with respect to that. If turkeys are sick, they will die. That's pretty much how it goes, and it happens pretty quickly. How long do you keep them in the brooder? Usually, three and a half to 4 weeks, and try to get them out as early as possible because once they're ready to go outside, they aren't going to do well in the brooder. They love the grass, and like I said earlier, if it gets cold, you can always put a couple blankets up over the house, and you can see this picture that we're on right now. Just hang that over the edges, and then they'll be fine. Do they need to be wormed? No. Transporting the turkey to slaughter, caged, crowded in the back of a truck. We do not cage them. They're much too big. Well, we don't have enough cages for all of them, but we have an 8-foot bed on our Toyota T100, and we had in that truck, we took 2 batches of 30, we have 38, I think, in the back of that truck. And these were big birds this year, and they were fine. We put hay in there, and then it's just a 45-minute ride. They certainly can kill each other. They can fall on each other and smash each other on a short truck ride if you're not careful. Just make sure that they're well dispersed, and if you have a cap, make sure that there's some air circulation in there too, so that they can breathe well, and get them there quickly. Do we sell them fresh or frozen? We attempt always to sell them fresh. We ended up with 3 birds this year left over, and we're going to try to sell those frozen for Christmas. But yeah, people, generally speaking, the folks who want the premier expensive turkey want it fresh. And so I think you're going to get a better price, and you're going to get a better interest from your customers if you have a fresh bird to sell. Did the audit cut off? Oop. The audio cut off for everyone, not for me. What's the preferred weights for turkeys? I showed that earlier. I'll show you that again. And there you go. A hen at 12 to 16 and a tom 18 to 24. That's the preferred weight. Some people will want a bigger one, and some people will want a smaller one. But generally speaking, if you can get your birds in that range, you're going to keep most of your customers happy. How close to Thanksgiving do you process for fresh sales? We are very lucky. Again, we're one of Walter's best customers. He slaughters our birds on Monday, and we sell them on Tuesday and Wednesday, so that's perfect. I think people can go as far away as Saturday or Sunday and get away with it. I prefer not to wait that long. I don't know the answer to whether they start to degrade after how many days, but for us, that ideal time is to slaughter on Monday or Tuesday. All right. Don't see any more questions right now. Any other thoughts, questions from you, Brittany, or?
Well, I was just wondering, because we have a couple minutes left, and I had the opportunity to be at your farm in October this year, if you wanted to talk to us a little bit about integrating the turkeys in the pasture and the vegetables and how you're seeing the improved health in the crops, just kind of tying that together, because I read the numbers and the $4,000 net revenue looks great, but I feel like there's other value to your farm that turkeys are adding. Because of
no, that's true of all of our animals, and I encourage anybody who has animals to use them as much as you can. These days, I'm trying to prioritize a lot of things, and one of the things I want to prioritize is big cover crops at the end of the year. But when you put birds or pigs or whatever on your land, they tend to either eat down your cover crops or root them up, or so you have to think about what your goals are and whether you need in a certain pasture, if you feel that you're needing more nitrogen and you can run those animals through, or if you have a plan to mulch it heavily or in some fashion get rye out there so that you think it can grow back in time. I think these tractors that we call them chicken tractors, turkey tractors, they are of a very specific size, and so you can run them through in that field that they were in at the end there. we ran them through a couple different places and left strips of brassicas in place because what I noticed inadvertently this year is that those brassicas caught all the oak leaves that came from the trees right over their heads, and they're holding all that mulch in place for us, which is very nice. And we're going to see, how that compares in terms of the turkey manure on one section, and then right next door to it, the brassicas in place over the winter. The more I read, the more I feel that having living roots in the soil is super high priority. So easier with chickens. They're around all year round to run them through and then their cover crop in and still have plenty of time to raise it. But yes, whatever you can do to maximize the value that your plants and animals can give to one another on the farm, I think the more integrated your system, and you'll also find that they're going to be eating less feed because they're eating things off your land. Do you provide any other nutritional additives, sprouted grain or kelp meal? I don't to the turkeys. Mostly comfrey, and then whatever they can get in there, whatever they're getting that day. They do best on grass, really. So we have an orchard. They get one half of the farm. The chickens get the other half of the farm, essentially. And the one fruit orchard that they go through has super high quality grass from just a lot of fertility applications for the trees, but also years and years of cows and chickens and all sorts of other things in there. And that's the best, I think the best nutritional additives once they get older is good grass, good forbs like dandelions, like, yellow dock and all the things that you find in a healthy field of grass. How high can the grass be? It's better for the ease of moving your houses and probably for their palatability if it doesn't go a whole lot more than 6 or 8 inches. You don't really want it lower. So I'd say 6 to 8 inches is probably the easiest. You can take them over taller grass. It'll mostly just flatten it, and they won't get quite so much food value out of it. Do you put turkeys where you had chickens the year before? I don't now. I want to make sure that they're at least a year away from chickens. I do have to say that our chickens are free-ranging in the fall and winter, so they do go over the farm, but they're not very concentrated in that sense. But more recently, I've kind of given the turkeys their side of the farm and the chickens their side of the farm, and that seems to be working much better.
Awesome. Julie, I think that was fabulous, and I want to congratulate everyone who asked so many great questions. I think this is the best session of question asking I've seen in the webinar. So, Julie, is it okay if I share this PowerPoint with people if they ask for it?
Sure. Yeah, no, and you're always in, thank you for your nice comments here. You're always welcome to come to the farm, and I can, share our charts and such with you. We've been raising them for a long time. It's a real, it's scary to raise turkeys because you can lose a whole flock if disease comes through, and you also have to just focus on the sales this one time of the year, and hopefully sometimes you can do Christmas sales too, but it's high risk, high gain. They're such fun animals. We used to, when our kids were little, they'd be out in their cages, and we'd be out playing baseball, and we'd hit a ball, and they'd be cheering when we hit the ball, and of course because of the noise it makes. But you can talk to them, you can yell at them, and they'll yell back. They're just so much fun to be around. Minimum flock size. Oh, I don't know, 6, 4, just enough so everybody's happy. So they have friends to hang out with. Great.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. For everybody who's still on, I just want to make a plug for our next webinar because it is off of our regular schedule. We thought 2 days after Christmas, before the new year, we might not get a great audience and nobody going to present then. So on the 13th of December, which is 2 Tuesdays from now, we have Leah Penniman, who's presenting a webinar called Grassroots Solutions for a Just and Sustainable Food Systems. Leah's actually traveled to Haiti, Mexico, and Ghana to exchange ideas and mutual aid with farmers there, and she runs Soulfire Farm in New York. I think it's going to be a really fabulous webinar, and I hope you guys will be able to. All right. Thank you, everybody, and I hope.
Great.
Thanks, Julie.
All right. Bye-bye.